OC. Viewer discretion is advised. Incoming transmission in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, it's Courtney here from the Outcasted OC Podcast and welcome to the Monday Night Raw recap. As you guys know, I don't like to spend too long with an introduction. I like to just talk about what happened on the show as soon as I can. I do want to mention quickly though that this episode of Monday Night Raw is still very tribute heavy in terms of the passing of Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt. Obviously, I will talk about them throughout the episode, and I'd like to spend a little bit of time at the very end talking about the impact that Bray Wyatt had on me as a wrestling fan. I just wanted to mention that quickly because this is the first Monday Night Raw since the passing of both WWE superstars, and obviously Terry Funk is a Hall of Famer. So I just wanted to mention that quickly before we get into the episode. If I don't seem like my bubbly, happy self at times, it's because I know that SmackDown was very hard to watch as just a consumer, but reviewing this episode of Monday Night Raw was also very hard for me in terms of there were some things that happened that made it quite emotional, so I will make sure to talk about that with the most sensitivity that I can. So let's just get straight into it. So Monday Night Raw this week kicked off with the same graphic at the beginning of the show that we saw on SmackDown last week. Now it's the split screen, obviously in memoriam of Terry Funk, and the other side was in memoriam of Bray Wyatt. Now, Michael Cole made a reference, obviously talking about that we've spoken about them, and obviously that this episode is going to be a tribute to them as well too. They loved to be sports entertainers, so that is what we're going to do tonight, is what Michael Cole says. Then we move into the first match of the night, which I really enjoyed starting Monday Night Raw off this week with a match. I think sometimes we can get quite complacent when it comes to starting off a Monday Night Raw or a Friday Night SmackDown with a promo, that it's quite nice to start off with something a little bit different than the norm. So we had a match between Sami Zayn and Damien Priest. Now, before the match started, we had a recap of what happened last week, the events that led to this match. So the events that led to this match were that Finn Balor and Damien Priest were going up against KO and Sami Zayn in a tag team match. The numbers got the better of them, and then the match ended in a disqualification, then became a 6-man tag. So we started off with Sami Zayn and Damien Priest both in the ring. Straight off the bat, Damien Priest is getting a lot of offense in. I was going to say cash in. I'm too busy looking at my Money in the Bank briefcase in the background. Senor Money in the Bank has, really taken a hold of me. So the match starts off between Sami Zayn and Damien Priest, with Damien getting a lot of offense in. There is a really nice running rope sequence between the two of them, which Sami ends up being able to turn into a deep arm drag, which I really enjoyed. It was a really clean sequence. Damien's just beating Sami Zayn down in the corner, which ends up getting turned into a mid-rope elbow from Sami. Then Sami ends up making this modified moonsault, which I really enjoyed seeing, and the moonsault was made on Damien outside of the ring. Damien hits a wicked clothesline on Sami Zayn, and during this part of the match we hear from commentary that we're going to be seeing Finn Balor and Damien Priest going up against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn at Payback for the WWE Undisputed Tag Team Championships, which, we've seen this match happen a lot of times, but the fact that it's happening on a premium live event at the caliber of the talent that we see, and also the fact that the tag titles are on the line, is really awesome. Damien's beating Sami Zayn in the corner, and there's a sit-out suplex coming in from Sami Zayn onto Damien Priest. There's a lot of really good moves here. There's a spot where Damien ends up slamming Sami Zayn into the announcer's table, but Sami's fighting back after the commercial break. Then Sami ends up hitting Damien with a sit-out powerbomb, which Sami ends up turning into a springboard leapfrog. And Sami ends up launching over the top rope, which was cool. Sami ends up hitting Damien with a blue thunderbomb, which you end up getting a 2 count on. A lot of kicks coming in from Damien Priest as well too. There is a moment where Damien tries to set up the Razor's Edge, but Sami ends up slipping out and hits him with an exploder suplex, which was really cool. The haluva kick ends up getting set up, so Damien's in one corner and then Sami's in the other, trying to set up the haluva kick. But JD ends up coming in and grabbing Sami's leg, which then distracts Sami enough to get Damien to grab him by the south of heaven and ends up getting a 3 count. So Damien Priest ends up winning this match. As Damien is in the middle of the ring celebrating the match, winning, obviously having his arm raised by the referee, JD McDonough comes in and grabs his arm and tries to celebrate, and Damien pushes him. He's like, stay out of my way. Like, what are you doing? Get out of my business. Like, this is literally my win and you're taking it away from me. Like, what are you doing? So he pushes him away and walks out of the ring and starts walking away. And then Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn end up getting their revenge on JD McDonough, which they weren't able to get last week, which was cool to see. They finally got their revenge on JD. But it's really interesting to see what's going on with JD and the Judgment Day. There's more teasers later on in the night, but honestly, what they're doing is really cool. Now, throughout the entire episode of Monday Night Raw, I will mention when there are tributes made to Bray and Terry, and obviously where little nods that are made. So during this match, it was really cool to see that when Kevin Owens came out, he had a Bray Wyatt Wyndham armband on, which was really cool to see. Very similar to how they did on Friday Night SmackDown. Moving on from the match, we ended up seeing the New Day were at Outback preparing for their match against the Viking Raiders, which was the tag team match they were having, which then we ended up seeing that the Viking Raiders were somewhat getting themselves prepared backstage as well. This was followed by a video recap / backstage segment with Drew McIntyre. Akira Tozawa's there and Drew's kind of looking down at this picture, and Akira's like, you look great, and ends up walking away. And Riddle comes in and he's like, sup man, what do you think? And then Drew McIntyre turns the picture around and it's Drew McIntyre, but in these green trunks that look very similar to Riddle's trunks. And Riddle goes ahead and says that every great team needs to have matching ring gear. And Drew's like, let's just see how this plays out first before we decide to make any big changes, eh? And Riddle was like, let's get matching kilts. And Drew's like, oh my gosh. So he tries to walk away, and then Riddle says, how about we try and get some ringside seats for this tag team match so we can scout out the competition? And Drew's like, yep, cool, that's fine with me. Then we had a hype package for the Raquel Rodriguez versus Rhea Ripley match. Now this is happening at Payback this weekend. It's very much like a sit-down speaking interview with Raquel. So Raquel goes ahead and says that Rhea thinks that she runs Monday Night Raw, and she thinks that she's the strongest and most dominant woman in all of WWE, except for me. If Rhea wants me to stop getting involved in her business, Rhea needs to stop taking advantage of her strength and size, and she won't let Rhea run through the entire women's division. Not after what she's done to me. And then we end up seeing moments where they've interacted and Rhea's gone after Raquel's knee. And she says she's been waiting for weeks to show Rhea what it's like to be at the mercy of someone bigger and stronger. And she says every bully has a weakness and insecurity. Rhea, she's not going to be able to measure up to me. And she says she's going to take that title at Payback and she is going to cut Rhea down to size. I quite enjoyed this promo. Sometimes with Raquel Rodriguez, I feel like her promos when she's cutting them live sometimes are a little bit iffy, but this was obviously a sit-down pre-recorded one, and I really enjoyed the enthusiasm and the way that she conducted herself and the message she was trying to get across. I'm a little bit more excited for this match now than I originally was, so it was really cool to see a really nice promo segment from Raquel. Then we saw a backstage segment of Becky Lynch stretching and getting ready for her match, which happens later on in the night. Then this moment was absolutely fantastic. So LA Knight's music hits and the crowd goes absolutely crazy. Little do we know, The Miz ends up coming out to the ring dressed as LA Knight. And as soon as I saw that it wasn't actually LA Knight and it was The Miz, I completely lost my mind. I started laughing so hard because I was like, of course The Miz would be like this. The Miz goes ahead and complains that, LA Knight's the next popular guy, but he's super quick to go ahead and try and pretend to be like him. Anyway, so he comes out to the ring, everyone's booing him because they realise it's not LA Knight, and I kid you not, the Miz's impression of LA Knight during this promo segment, I honestly thought LA Knight was speaking and the Miz was lip syncing for him because it was almost spot on. So Miz goes ahead and says, let me talk to you, yeah, and he's doing all these little catchphrases that, LA Knight does. He's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do it because it's clearly not as great. Anyway, he goes ahead and he says he's a dangerous man. So dangerous that when you walk into the ring with The Miz, I flip my words. So he's pretending to be LA Knight in this moment and pretending to say that, LA Knight flusters his words so much when he's around The Miz. And he goes ahead and he says he knows what it takes to be more than a phrase. And obviously, people are just supporting LA Knight just to support LA Knight. And he says, you need to earn your cheers. And he grabs this bag and he pretends there's like free LA Knight shirts in there. He's like, who wants an LA Knight shirt? And everyone's like going crazy. And then he references Stone Cold as well too, which was quite funny. And he grabs a shirt and then he tries to pretend to throw it in different areas of the arena and throws it down onto the ground. And goes ahead and says, you are so pathetic. You guys cheer for everything, which means that your support means nothing. And he goes, that was easy. Everybody can be LA Knight. Vanilla, generic. And he says, I don't do catchphrases when I say I'm awesome because it's the truth. And he goes ahead and he says that you won't be cheering losers and you don't cheer losers. And on Saturday at Payback, LA Knight will become a loser. And I was like, okay, I was kind of waiting for LA Knight to come out, but unfortunately LA Knight did not make an appearance during this. I do think that he will make an appearance obviously on SmackDown, and then The Miz will face off against him, giving us that last little wee preview before we see them at Payback together. Then we had a video recap showing Shinsuke Nakamura's promo against Seth Rollins last week. Obviously the promo where he was talking about how he is going to break Seth at Payback. That really awesome promo that we saw from him last week, which is then followed by Seth Rollins backstage. He's kind of just sitting, getting his head right. We end up seeing when the camera pans away, he's got a Wyndham armband, which that's obviously in reference to Bray Wyatt. And Ricochet walks past him and just kind of gives him like the acknowledgement nod and walks away. Then we end up having the New Day versus the Viking Raiders tag match. Now, obviously, Riddle and Drew are both ringside watching this. Both members of the New Day both have armbands on that say Bray on them, as well as the Viking Raiders as well. It's these wee little nods that the wrestlers give each other in terms of solidarity and condolences. I really enjoy seeing that. It shows a real deep sense of community within the entire locker room, and it really shows how much of an impact that Bray had, not only in the wrestling industry but also as Wyndham, in terms of creating and developing friendships with these people and obviously enjoying the company and just being a terrific person. So I love seeing all these tributes and all these wee little nods to Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk as well too. Please don't get me wrong there. I really enjoy seeing them for both of them. We see a lot more Bray ones during Monday Night Raw this week. It's just really heartwarming to see the amount of support people are showing him after his passing. Anyway, I will get back to the tag match. I'll save some words of Bray Wyatt for the very end. There's some really solid sequences in this tag match from Eric and Xavier Woods. They're both starting out in the ring at the same time. The Viking Raiders end up double teaming Xavier, so pretty much the whole story within this match is that Xavier Woods is working his best within the match, but the Viking Raiders are too strong for him, can't really get to Kofi. Viking Raiders are looking really strong in this match, as I said, but then Xavier tries to get some offense in. Kofi ends up coming in super hot in terms of he's just aggressive and ready to fight. He's beating down on both the Viking Raiders, hits a crossbody and a boom drop by Kofi. Then Xavier ends up sliding and hitting Eric. There's a couple of high-flying moves, and then Valhalla ends up trying to distract Xavier, and then Xavier gets chopped off the top rope and takes out Kofi. There's a few cheap shots coming in from the Viking Raiders. Then we end up seeing a couple moments where the Viking Raiders are double teaming on Xavier, and then obviously New Day try and turn this back around on them. Kofi Kingston ends up getting picked up by Ivar and ends up being thrown into Riddle and Drew, who are just sitting by the commentary table, kind of just minding their own business, watching the match. And then Drew McIntyre during this entire match, because Riddle's trying to very much get his attention and take notes and be all animated, and Drew McIntyre is kind of just sitting there like this, not looking very happy to be there. So when Kofi Kingston ends up getting dropped into Riddle and Drew kind of snaps and loses it. He ends up getting out of the chairs and throws the chairs into the ring, and he ends up accidentally throwing one into Xavier, which I don't think that was not necessary, but I don't think that was intentional. Viking Raiders end up hitting their finisher Ragnarok and end up taking the win away on this one. Then we end up seeing that the New Day are outside of the ring. Obviously, Kofi is checking up on Xavier. Riddle and Drew have come to check up on Xavier to make sure he's okay. You can see Drew's profusely apologizing, but then he gets really angry and starts throwing chairs again. So whether or not he was angry at Riddle or angry just at the entire situation is unsure, but we move on. So the Judgment Day end up having a video segment backstage. Now they're in their wee little area that they've got, in terms of they've got like a wee little segregated area away from everybody else. It's like the man cave, but it's for Judgment Day. Straight away I see that there is a Bray Wyatt t-shirt hanging up on the fence, which is obviously his Revel in What You Are shirt. I really enjoyed this wee little Easter egg, some would say. Bray Wyatt was an absolute master when it came to Easter eggs in his promos and in his video segments, everything he kind of did. So really appreciated the way that they did that. Eagle Eye fans like myself would have seen that straight away. So Finn is in an argument with Damien Priest straight away. Now I'm guessing this is obviously in response to what happened earlier in the night. We didn't see the first part, we kind of just got to see the argument. So Finn goes ahead and says, it's the same stuff with me and you every week, but on Saturday we've got a tag team title match against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and we need to get it together. And Damien goes, yeah, you're right, we need to get it together. We need to focus on Judgment Day business instead of people that don't matter. People like JD, as in JD McDonough. And Finn goes, oh yeah? And he goes ahead and he says, is that right? Well, JD's the only reason that you beat Sami tonight, and you left him laying. And Damien goes, I left him hanging. You know why? Because I don't care about JD. I care about this family. I care about Judgment Day. This is what I'm concerning myself with. Since you're so concerned with your friend JD, why don't you take a walk? And then he's trying to finish off what he's saying. And Rhea goes ahead and says, hey, shut up. Every single week we talk about us being the most dominant faction in all of WWE. But every single week we always fall apart because you two can't get along. And she goes ahead and says, the only people within Judgment Day that are actually handling Judgment Day business is me and Dom. And she goes ahead and then she also says, you know, people are starting to target me now because of the fact that you guys can't help. They're starting to target me because I'm the only one holding everything together. And she says, Finn, Priest, you need to make this right on Saturday at Payback. And you have to remind everybody why we are a force to be reckoned with. You better win when it matters. And she goes ahead and says, if we all don't walk out with gold at the end of Payback, there are going to be some serious changes around here. And Damien held up his briefcase, like that one there, and goes ahead and says, I don't have a problem winning gold, in Finn's face. And I was like, because in my brain, I'm starting to think about the way that the Judgment Day is going to demise, and I had a really good theory in my mind straight after that happened. It was a really interesting segment that happened there. After this, we had a tribute video for Bray Wyatt. Now, this was the same tribute video that was shown on Friday Night SmackDown. That's not to say that they can't showcase the video multiple times. It's just to give a little bit more context as to what happened. So they showed the tribute video, and I could feel myself getting emotional. It is a very powerful video. It shows a lot of his career and shows a lot of the highs that he had, different ways that he reinvented himself. The song choice in this tribute video, it hits me so hard. It is the perfect song to use in this. It was amazing to see the video again. I've watched it a few times since the original debut of that tribute video from last week's SmackDown. The video finishes off and you can see that there are a ton of fireflies around the arena. So a lot of people are holding up their phone torches to resemble Bray Wyatt's fireflies. A lot of thank you Bray chants coming in from the crowd. And then we end up seeing panned over on the entrance ramp. They've set up the rocking chair with the spotlight. Obviously that's Bray Wyatt's chair. I loved the way that they did this. They did a phenomenal job in terms of tributing, you know, showing the video and also giving him his moment as well too, because he not only was a wrestler on Friday Night SmackDown and he also was a wrestler on Monday Night Raw, but it gives a different crowd another opportunity to, I don't know the word I'm looking for here, but it gives them another opportunity to appreciate Bray and another opportunity to show homage and tribute Bray in this moment. Then we end up seeing that Drew, Riddle and New Day are all backstage. So we end up seeing that Riddle and Drew are kind of waiting outside medical. Kofi comes out and they're just checking up on Xavier, and we're like, look, Drew's like, I'm so sorry for what happened, like I didn't mean to throw it at him, I hope he knows that I didn't mean to throw it. And Kofi's like, no guys, like, you're all good. And obviously talking about how the fact that the Viking Raiders have become a very big problem. And Drew goes ahead and says, me and Riddle are going to take them out, we're going to take care of the Viking Raider problem, I'll go talk to Adam Pearce. And Drew looks very stern, very angry, very mad. So he walks off, and Riddle ends up talking to Kofi, and he was like, well, what do you think he meant when he said that he's going to take care of the problem? And Kofi's like, I don't know. And then Riddle was like, well, I mean, he said we, so it's him and I. But I don't think Riddle's realizing that Drew's going to take care of the problem without Riddle. After this, we see Imperium walking out to the ring. Now, there is a match set up between Chad Gable and Ludwig Kaiser happening tonight, but before that does, Gunther is walking out to the ring with Imperium. He stands on the ring announcer's table and starts to cut a promo. So he goes ahead and says that Chad Gable made history last week. He was the first man to beat me in over 500 days, but he only won via countout. He said, Chad Gable gained victory, but he didn't win anything, because I'm still your Intercontinental Champion. And he goes ahead and he says, but, Chad Gable did achieve one thing. He's really pissed me off. And he goes ahead and he says, now that Chad Gable has my attention and my focus, next week it'll be Chad Gable versus Gunther on Monday Night Raw. Chad Gable won't beat Ludwig this week either. And the Alpha Academy comes out, and Chad goes ahead and says, you did make some really good points. You have been on the roster for 2 years and nobody's been able to beat you until last week. And he says that I did it in 10 seconds, but next week I won't need 10 seconds. I'll only need 3. Then the match ends up getting started between Ludwig and Chad. This was a really good match. It did start off a little bit iffy in my opinion. I think they were just trying to find their feet between each other. But once they got going, they really had a good match. So Chad's getting a lot of offense in straight away within this match. Chad ends up hitting a cannonball on Ludwig outside of the ring, which was really cool to see. Then he ends up arm dragging Ludwig. So Chad's getting a lot of offense in straight away within this match. But Chad ends up trying to suplex Ludwig, but Ludwig's holding on to the ring ropes. Ludwig ends up getting the upper hand within this and ends up dropping Chad into the ring mat. There's a really nice sequence that Chad Gable does during this match and ends up trying to get somewhat of like an armbar set up on Ludwig. Chad's really working Ludwig's arm, but then Ludwig ends up kicking Chad into the side of his rib. Ludwig ends up hitting Chad Gable with a really nice shoulder tackle, which looks really clean, but then Ludwig ends up getting a lot more offense, and Chad Gable tries to get an armbar in on the ring ropes against Ludwig. So he does that thing where Ludwig's on the side and then Chad's on the inside trying to get the armbar in, but Ludwig ends up slapping Chad Gable out of the ring. There's a lot of moments where there's some chops being exchanged between them. There is a dragon screw move hit by Chad onto Ludwig, I'm trying to say. Chad ends up trying to go for this moonsault, but nobody was there to catch it and ends up obviously not being able to do it. And then Chad ends up hitting Ludwig with a really nice fisherman's throw and goes for the moonsault outside the ring again and takes out both of Imperium. There's a top rope move that Chad tries to execute, but Ludwig ends up getting his knees up, which then Chad ends up reversing into an ankle lock, and then Ludwig ends up trying to kick out of it. Eventually ends up breaking the hold, and then Otis gets involved. So Chad Gable won this match via disqualification. So Gunther reappears when the brawl is happening between Chad and Giovanni, but then Gunther ends up trying to hit a power slam on Chad Gable, which somehow he manages to slip out of and reverse. Imperium are beating down on Gable, and then Gunther ends up power bombing Chad Gable. So whether or not that's an indication on how next week is going to go, I'm not too sure, but it was a good match nonetheless. Then we end up seeing that there is actually a Bob Barker tribute. Now, Bob Barker did pass away. He was somewhat of a guest host sometimes in WWE, also was inducted into the Hall of Fame, I believe. So it's really nice that they put a wee little tribute segment into him as well. He obviously had a massive influence within the WWE, so it was nice that they acknowledged that. Then we move on to Seth Rollins. Now Seth Rollins is coming out to the ring and he is sporting a Wyndham armband as well too, which was really nice to see. Seth makes his way out to the ring and I looked at his belt and I thought to myself, there's something different about the World Heavyweight Championship. And sure enough, Seth Rollins is that guy. He has one of his side plates, obviously, as Seth Rollins, and he has one of the Fiend's side plates on his championship, which I'd seen something about it online before I'd watched Monday Night Raw, and I was thinking, I really hope that's true, because if that is a very classy thing to do. And sure enough, Seth Rollins is a very classy man and had one of the Fiend side plates on his belt, which I really loved seeing that. I really am enjoying, as I said earlier in the recap, the way that wrestlers are finding ways to do little nods or little tributes to Bray and Terry as well. I really enjoyed seeing that. So Seth Rollins starts to cut a promo and he says, welcome to Monday Night Raw. And he goes ahead and he says, Yowie Wowie, which, I mean, if you know, you know, is a massive tribute to Bray Wyatt and The Fiend. And he goes ahead and he says that it's been a very long week. And he says, you know, Shinsuke Nakamura at Payback, you'll get a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship. But how about you give me what I want right now? How about you come out, Shinsuke? Let everybody sing your song. Oh, wait. They don't sing it anymore. And then Shinsuke ends up having this video package that happens. So Seth is in the ring and on the Titantron. Shinsuke ends up having a video promo and he says, I don't want to simply defeat Seth Rollins the champion. I want to dismantle Seth Rollins the man. I want his wife to know I'm the reason that she has to help him out of bed in the mornings. I'm the reason he won't be able to walk his daughter down the aisle on her wedding day. His body has betrayed him. I will break him. He can be broken. He knows this. I am going to destroy his back and put him out of his misery. He has no honor, no code, no future. I really enjoyed this promo from Shinsuke, and during this promo, he's in a gym and he's obviously hitting a punching bag and getting a lot of kicks in as well too, which was really cool to see. Once this had happened, Seth Rollins is still in the ring and he goes ahead and he says, is that it? A video package, really? And he says, I want to know what happened to the Shinsuke, the old Shinsuke, the one that headlined the Tokyo Dome, the one that lit the whole world on fire during his NXT debut. And he goes ahead and he says, a month ago, I would have given you the shirt off my back, the same back that's broken in 2 places. My back didn't stop me from winning the World Heavyweight Championship or beating you. And he says, when it comes to Payback, I'm going to pummel and maul you. I'm not going to stop. And you will never take anything from me. Not the title, not my future, and not my family. And just when we think the promo's over, Shinsuke ends up sneak attacking on Seth Rollins and ends up leaving Seth Rollins lying in the ring and walks out. Whether that's how it happens at Payback, I'm not too sure. I really like that they've been using these video segments to really push this feud, because it kind of felt like it had come out of nowhere. But the video segments and the promos have really enhanced the feud, and it's given it an extra foil and wrinkle in the story in terms of a reason why they're fighting. And we had a backstage promo with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Kevin Owens is sporting a Bray Wyatt armband, Wyndham armband. As I say, I'm really enjoying these tributes and wee little nods to them coming in. Sami goes ahead and he says, you know, we're really tired of doing this with Judgment Day. They keep coming back and gaining cheap victories over us and playing the numbers game. With this title match at Payback, it's only happening one more time. And then goes ahead and he says, hey, Kevin, how about you say what you want to say? And Kevin goes ahead and says that rules won't play a factor at Payback, because we are going to be having a Steel City street fight, which I'm assuming is very similar to a steel cage match. Anyway, that's exciting to see that there is some form of stipulation being added to this match. And he goes ahead and he says, he references his steel cage table shot and when he got thrown off the steel cage. And he says that nothing will compare to what we'll do this weekend. So I'm really excited for this match now. As I said, I'm stoked that they've added some form of stipulation, because I feel like this feud really much needed it. So I'm looking forward to this match. Then we had Tommaso Ciampa going up against Bronson Reed. Now, as Tommaso is making his entrance and walking down the entrance, Bronson ends up sneak attacking Tommaso Ciampa, but Tommaso Ciampa realizes that he can get the upper hand on this very easily. So as they get into the ring, Tommaso ends up beating down on Bronson, hits Bronson with a running knee, and then Tommaso ends up chopping Bronson back. And then after we came back from the commercial break, there is a splash move which Bronson hits on Tommaso, which is cool to see. Tommaso kicks Bronson Reed in his ankles into the ring post, which then Tommaso ends up trying to get Bronson back on his back and hits him with a back slam, which gets a 2 count. Tommaso ends up exposing his knee, but then ends up getting hit by a splash by Bronson. Bronson does this running power bomb to Tommaso, which was also really cool to see. There's this move where Bronson has got Tommaso on his back, but then ends up reversing the move, and we get a 1-2-3. Kind of came out of nowhere. But one thing I did notice at the very end when Tommaso Ciampa was celebrating his win is they started his match entrance in with "No One Will Survive." But then at the end of the match, they weren't playing "No One Will Survive." They were playing a different song. I'm not really too sure what they're trying to do. I don't want them to change his theme. His theme is way too iconic, and I just don't think it needs to be changed. Then we saw Jackie was backstage, and she quickly spoke to Becky Lynch in preparation for her match. And she goes ahead and says that, you'll be facing Trish at Payback this weekend, but do you have any second thoughts on tonight's match against Zoe Stark? And she says, well, yeah, I've been having second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth thoughts about Zoe Stark. And she said that she didn't want to take the easy way and that she's going to bring a lot of chaos into this match. Rhea Ripley comes out to the ring to cut a promo. As Rhea Ripley's coming out to the ring, we actually get to see that Tiffany Stratton is standing in the crowd, obviously with her championship waving to everybody. Now, it was referenced on commentary as well too that apparently Tiffany doesn't think that she's got enough competition in NXT. So I like that they referenced that and that she came up to Monday Night Raw. I really enjoyed seeing her. So Rhea comes out to the ring with Dom and starts to cut a promo where she goes ahead and says that, Raquel Rodriguez says that she's going to cut me to size at Payback. It's cute to play up an injury. I mean, it's the first time and it's the last time that I'll let this happen. I honestly don't blame her for faking an injury because my resume speaks for itself. I'm a champion, I don't have to prove everything to you. And she goes ahead and she says that Raquel is an idiot, and she does have her own accomplishments. She's big, she's strong, she's tough, but she's not Rhea bloody Ripley. And, she says that she can talk all you want, but Mami is going to walk out of Payback as the champion. And then Raquel ends up coming out to the ring and they end up getting into a brawl. Rhea ends up trying to hit a riptide on Raquel, but Raquel ends up reversing it and hitting her with a powerbomb. I quite enjoyed the segment. As I said, a lot of these have added a lot of extra passion and fire into these matches. I'm excited that Rhea's going to be defending her championship on a premium live event because we haven't seen her defend the championship, on a premium live event since Backlash, I believe, against Zelina Vega. So it'll be cool to see. I'm really hoping this match is going to be very interesting. And we quickly see that Trish Stratus and Zoe Stark are backstage, and Trish goes ahead and says that Becky is an idiot for asking for this match, and she is basically giving Zoe Stark free reign to do anything to Becky Lynch, but basically asks that, Zoe leaves Trish a little bit left of Becky so that she's got something to fight against at Payback. And Zoe goes ahead and says, I'll leave plenty of Becky Lynch once I'm done with her. Don't you worry. Then after this, we saw the Terry Funk video package tribute video that we saw from Friday Night SmackDown. As I say, awesome to see that they are, paying homage and basically acknowledging Terry Funk and his accomplishments and what he did for the company and the matches that he put on and the feuds that he had. Terry Funk will be sorely missed. Then we had the main event, which was a Falls Count Anywhere match between Zoe Stark and Becky Lynch. Now, Becky Lynch came out by herself, had her moment, and then Zoe obviously had Trish with her. Because this is a Falls Count Anywhere match, there's no disqualification. So straight away, Becky and Zoe are eyeing each other up, and they both grab kendo sticks, and they just start beating each other with kendo sticks. Becky's just beating down on Zoe and ends up hitting Zoe with a Russian leg sweep using the kendo stick. Then she follows that with a crossface using the kendo stick. Trish ends up grabbing one and hits Becky with it too. Obviously, because this is a no disqualification match, anything goes. Trish can get involved. Zoe's looking for the powerbomb, but then Becky ends up getting onto the top and splashes onto Trish and Zoe outside of the ring. Tries to get a 2 count on this, and then Zoe ends up hitting Becky with the kendo stick. There is a lot of back and forth with the kendo stick. Then Zoe ends up hitting Becky with a missile drop kick, gets a 2 count on that as well. Then there's a moment where Trish ends up trying to throw chairs into the ring to help Zoe, but she ends up hitting Zoe with a chair. So that's strike one in terms of their alliance not working very well within this match. At this point, Becky's getting really frustrated with the constant interference from Trish Stratus, so she is just beating her down with a kendo stick, chases her around the ring, and ends up running up the entrance ramp and just attacking her with the kendo stick. Becky gets back in the ring and starts attacking on Zoe a little bit more, but she ends up hitting Zoe with a superplex into the chairs because there's like a whole bunch of chairs just completely sprawled out everywhere. So Becky takes that to her advantage and superplexes Zoe into them, which I really enjoyed. The match ends up going outside into the arena as well too. There's a few moments where Trish is kind of trying to get the better of Becky, and obviously Zoe and Trish are working together very much. Trish ends up hitting a really nice leg drop into a table with Becky, and she ends up dragging Zoe to get the cover, gets a 2 count. Then there's a moment where Trish is going 2-on-1 against Becky, and Zoe's there as well too. So they're all kind of standing on this table, and then they end up trying to beat down on Becky. But then, like, I don't know how this happened, but Becky ends up finding a way to like move around, and then Zoe ends up throwing Trish into the table. So this is the second time that the alliance between these two has not worked out in their favor. I didn't realize this was going to happen, but I'm totally here for it. Then Becky ends up hitting a manhandle slam on Zoe on a table and gets a 3 count, and that is Becky Lynch winning the match. She won the Falls Count Anywhere match, which I'm hoping is an indication on her winning this feud against Trish Stratus. While I have enjoyed the feud, I feel like it has really dragged on longer than it needed to. I, to be honest, in my humble opinion, think it needed to finish at SummerSlam. But that's the match, and then at the very end, Becky is just sitting down and she looks at her armband because she's wearing a Bray Wyatt armband, and takes it off and holds it up in the crowd. So that is Monday Night Raw. So I wanted to take some time at the very end of this recap just to quickly talk about Bray Wyatt. When I first heard the news, I honestly did not believe it. My brain and my heart were both telling me, you know, this isn't happening, because it was just so incredibly shocking to hear that somebody who managed to accomplish a lot within his short stint on being on the main roster. That's not to say that he wouldn't have had more time. It's just he accomplished a lot within a very short span of time. Managed to reinvent himself in many different ways. The creativity the man had was just off the charts. I really loved Bray Wyatt back in NXT, and when he came up to the main roster, I was so excited with the Wyatt family forming as well too. Those were some of my favourite times of Bray. Obviously, his work that he did with the Shield, those matches, if you have not seen them, please go back and watch them. They are just incredible. The ring chemistry, the stories that were being told within those matches were just really awesome to see. The way that Bray obviously brought in the Firefly Funhouse and started to implement the Fiend as well too was really a way to kick Bray Wyatt, the character, into gear some more and obviously show a different side of him. Bray Wyatt was a master when it came to his creativity and his storytelling, and I do feel like there is now going to be a massive void in the wrestling community in terms of creativity and just all around storytelling. He was really good at what he did. A lot of the stories and a lot of his ideas that he had were well beyond his time as well too. Like, he was thinking so far in the future and really wanted to take the wrestling industry up a level. Yeah, it's really hard to just, like, it's been a couple of days now, but like my brain is slowly starting to process the news, but my heart is it just won't accept it. Bray Wyatt will be sorely missed. I will definitely miss him. It's just really hard accepting the fact that he's not going to be around anymore. Obviously, my condolences go out to his family. I've said that since I found the news out. My thoughts and prayers are with his family and with his friends. he really was so incredibly special. And just the tributes that have come out about Bray, but also about Wyndham. So if you separate the character from the person, so many people have had so many nice things to say about him on social media. And that just goes to show that it's a testament to who he is as a person, not just as a character we see on TV, but also as a person with a family and with loved ones and with friends and colleagues. So I'm really sorry to end this on a really somber note, but it's been one of those weeks. I will miss you, Bray. Rest in peace, Bray. I hope that you're up there. With Brody, putting on some really good tag matches. I'm going to leave it up there because I don't want to start crying again, but Bray will be sorely missed. And rest in peace, Bray. So if you guys have made it to the end of the video, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for listening to my thoughts on Monday Night Raw this week. Please make sure that you go ahead and like, comment and subscribe to the channel, because we really appreciate your support when it comes to these recaps and pushing our videos out into the algorithm for people like you who love wrestling and love talking about all the nitty-gritty details in terms of what happens on the show. We will be posting an NXT review, so Reese will be recapping the episode this week. We're also going to be having a Payback predictions episode coming out this week. We'll be doing a podcast, which we're obviously going to have the four of us, as well as Santi as well too, will be featuring. We have shared the post out on Instagram, so make sure that if you're not following our Instagram, that you follow it so you can keep up to date with when we're putting out new reviews and new podcasts. Also, make sure you check in the description down below for all of our personal social medias so you can keep up to date with what we're doing when we are not around. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.